I think it's all right. Yeah, internet was a big deal. Good morning, Cape Fear. All right. There we go. So, it has been a busy week. And throughout the week, sometimes we get to take some time away from the busyness. And this week, my wife and my daughters got to take time out to go get their hair did. And I hope I don't mess up this story all too much, but while one of them was getting her hair did, the stylist, as they do, wanted to strike up conversation, wanted to break the silence, and started asking her about herself, and it got brought up that basically she's a PK. And for those that don't speak Christianese, a PK is a pastor's kid or preacher's kid. She's like, oh, you're a pastor's kid, right? And it was Grace, and she's like, yeah. So the stylist goes into this next part of, oh, do you know so-and-so? She's also a PK. Well, I know this isn't word for word of how the story goes, and my daughter's sitting there like, okay, first off, this is my inner dialogue, not hers. Mine's a little more snarky than hers, most likely. First off, do you know how many denominations do you think there are in Fayetteville, North Carolina? Out of those denominations, do you know how many different churches there are in Fayetteville, North Carolina? Then how many pastors and preachers there are per church in Fayetteville, North Carolina? Then how many kids do you think those pastors and preachers have, because we know they have a lot, in Fayetteville, North Carolina? What do you think? Do you think I'm going to know the other PK just because we're PKs, we're all going to know each other? I guess ridiculous. But those that don't, aren't in it, just, oh, you're a PK? You know each other. So then, she goes into, describing this other girl, and she goes, oh, yeah, that's Haley. Yeah, that's actually my best friend. So they did know each other. They're best friends with each other. But not the point. The point is that somebody, and I don't know this stylist's beliefs. I don't know if she's a Christian. I don't know if she's not. It does not matter, but the concept is that she thought that all the pastor's kids should know each other. And Grace was talking to me about this, and she goes, that's kind of sad. And she wasn't saying that it was sad that we should all know each other. She's saying it was sad because we barely know any. We don't know any other people from other churches. I mean, I know you know some, but we have no church affiliations with other churches. This morning we were talking about church softball leagues. That was a way to bring churches together until we got to the point where church softball teams cheat and bring people who don't go to the church. Other side from that, there was a concept of bringing churches together. There's lunches that bring churches together. There's all of these things in Fayetteville, North Carolina that we could do to bring churches together, yet we don't. We do not know anybody from any other church. We get into our own little piece of the pie, and we focus on us, and she's right, it is sad. And she said that last week, and then I went to a luncheon at the college this week, and I got to meet some other pastors, and that was kind of cool. It was kind of neat. But I don't know if there's going to be long-lasting relationships. I tried to go one street over to the church over there and met the pastor. It took me a really long time. It was not the most normal of interactions. And then when something happened, I called him, and he's not even the pastor there anymore. And I don't know when he left, but it's been a while, and I didn't know that. We have so few interactions with the churches. And so we're reading 1 Corinthians, right? We're reading about the church of Corinth, and I told you the first week, the church of Corinth is not like a Cape Fear Baptist church. The church of Corinth is like the church of Fayetteville. There's more places that people meet together inside of Corinth. It's not just one central location. They had to meet in pockets, just like Fayetteville. And yet this letter was to the church of Corinth. And this morning, we're going to read about divisions in the church, and it's going to ring so true to who we are as a church when we're talking about the Church of Fayetteville. Not Cape Fear Baptist Church. So when I'm talking about the church, I need you in your minds, in your brains, as you're visualizing it, that you're not imagining just the folks in this room. The church are God's people. It's much broader, it's much bigger than just what we have here. In church, we're failing, but that's okay. Always move. It's not okay that we're failing. Like, we can fix it. We can move forward. So we're in 1 Corinthians 3. I'm going to start out with 1 through 3. And he says, "But I, brothers, could not address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for it. And even now you are not ready, for you are still of the flesh. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, you are not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way." And so he's saying, he starts out and he's talking about when he first came to Corinth. When he starts out, he says, when I first came here, when we're establishing the church here, I started off with you as infants, spiritual infants. And I don't think we need to go into like a family lesson here, but when a child is born, they don't have the ability to chew solid food, right? They only have the ability to drink milk. And that milk is what? Like it's life sustaining. It is what provides every nutrient that infant needs to grow, to build their muscles, their bones. Like it's the foundation of life. Like it is the beginning of everything. Like it's important. So he's not saying this, he's not trivializing the truth that was given to them, but the truth was simple in nature that he gave them at the beginning. He's like, look, I couldn't give you solid food. I could only give you milk. Now that's important. And he spent 18 months with the church, and then we know that time has passed between when he left and now. So we've got time that has passed, and he comes back, and he's like, well, he doesn't come back. Like he's writing this letter back to them, and he's saying, like, look, I came, and I gave you spiritual milk. It was the basics. We didn't go into the advanced stuff. We didn't get to the meat. We didn't grow. Like we didn't really get into like the good stuff. Because I mean, like I love a steak on the grill much more than a glass of milk. Like, we didn't get to the good stuff. And I'm writing this letter to you, church. He's saying, I'm writing this letter to you, and I still can't get to the good stuff. I still can't progress to those concepts that some of you really want, and like the stuff that really drives him and is carrying him through. He's like, I can't build you, church, because you are so immature and infantile in your spiritual walk that we cannot progress to the next step. We can't grow. You can't develop even to spiritual teenagers, to young adults, to parents. Like, we're not even there. Says, church, like the division amongst them is what he's talked about before and what he's about to talk about now. The division amongst them is such a problem that Paul is saying, look, we can't even grow. I can't even move on to the hard stuff because you guys can't get the simple stuff of community, of love, of togetherness. That's brutal. That's brutal. So I got some props up here. Sometimes I bring props, right? So I got some props. Okay. What is it? Some of you don't know. What is this? A wrench. It's a big wrench, right? A what? What'd you say? A ginormous wrench. It's a big wrench. It's 2-inch. It's a big wrench. right? I asked my daughter to go grab the wrench. I said, I want one of the big ones. I think she got the biggest one, right? All right, so a wrench. What did we use wrenches for? Wrenching. What else? Tightening and loosening, right? To fix things. To fix things. To fix cars. Or tractors. I don't know. Like, this is a big wrench, right? This is for my motorcycle. So this is a big wrench. All right? So when we have a wrench and we use a wrench to wrench or tighten or loosen, or we use the wrenches in our toolbox, and a mechanic uses the wrenches to fix a car, does the mechanic fix the car or does the wrench fix the car? The mechanic fixes the car. The wrench is just a tool, right? It's a tool. That's it, right? So I'm going to put my wrench away. Everyone should know this one. Okay, everybody doesn't know what this is. We'll go with a claw hammer. All right, we'll go with the claw hammer. This is a hammer, right? What do we use a hammer for? Driving and removing nails. Hammering. You're not wrong. You are absolutely correct. This is a hammer, right? So we use contractors. We don't use hammers to cut up ham. That would be interesting. But we have carpenters and we have contractors, and they'll use this tool, and this is probably the primary tool. They'll use this tool to build houses. And when somebody builds a house, do we say that the contractor built the house, or do we say that the hammer built the house? Contractor builds a house. The hammer is a tool. Personal heater. It warms you up when you use it. It does. It does. That's a fact. But we also know it as a shovel. It's a dirt mover, a shovel. What does a shovel do? Shovels. What? Dig holes. So the gardener uses this to plant trees, right? Or dig trenches. Drainage systems, like all kinds of stuff. I know, it's kind of a theme here. When this is used, does the shovel dig the hole, or does the gardener dig the hole? The gardener digs the hole. The gardener's the one that plants the tree. We don't talk about the tool is not never gets the credit for doing the work, because the tool is just a tool. This is going to be a long illustration, but come on, bear with me. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but my son Kenny, when he was around the motorcycle club, right? When he was around the motorcycle club, it all started with, a long time ago, I had this stump in my backyard. We've talked about the stump, I think, briefly. It was a big stump. I mean, it was a stump from one of those really tall pine trees. The tree was removed well before I got there, but this stump, I mean, we're probably talking 4 feet in diameter. It was a big stump. And Kenny might have gotten in trouble, and I might have made him remove the stump with an axe and a shovel, right? And by the end of the summer, it took him all summer. By the end of the summer, that stump was gone, but then he's like, hey, you got some more stumps. You want me to take care of them? They were little stumps, and dude, he had those removed in hours, where it would take, before the summer of the stump, and so he did a really good job there. Anytime I needed something done, I would ask Kenny to do it. And so it became this thing, like somebody's like, oh, I need a stump removed. I'm like, I got a tool for that. Now, I wasn't talking about the axe and the shovel. I was talking about the Kenny. So Kenny's name became Tool. Right? Kenny's name became Tool. It was a good name. It was a really good road name. I loved it. I'm not sure if he did. Because if I call you a tool, what are you going to want to do? You're gonna want to throw some fists, right? Let's throw some hands. You don't want to be known as a tool, but I mean, like when you are so versatile, when I can put you on a task to do anything, like you're a tool, man. Like that's a good thing. But I'll be honest, when I used that tool, I was the one that got the credit, not the tool itself. And so we're going to continue to read, and we're going to read 3:5 through 17. Well, I think I skipped 4. For when one says, I follow Apollo, and another says, I follow Apollos, are you not merely being human? My apologies. That was supposed to be with the first group of verses, but we talked about the division. That's the division in the church. And so 5 through 17. What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers, you are God's field, God's building. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. I love Paul, and I love Paul's humility in here. And he's talked so much about the division in the church, and now he's on the tail end of it, and he's like, look, we each have a role here. Last week we talked about it's our job to be obedient and be a part of the process, but it's God's job for the Spirit to bring someone to Christ. In this, Paul himself is saying, look, I laid the foundation through Christ, and Apollos is building on it, and each one has their role in this structure in the church. But who gets the credit? God should get the credit. We're just tools. We're just tools in the process. We don't want to be tools half the time. Most of us, our egos don't let us become the tools, or we want to be more than the tools. We want to be the shovel taking credit for the tree. We want to be the hammer taking credit for the house. We want to be the wrench taking credit for the service, for the repair. And yet so often this is how we behave. Paul's humility is incredible. When I meet a man or get to read about a man who shows true humility, I love it because it's something that I struggle with. Humility is something that most of us struggle with. And so when I get to see someone who shows true humility, like, I want to do nothing but shine a light on that, which I know kind of like diminishes the humility, but it's so important. Paul wrote most of our New Testament. He was the foundation of many of these churches that we're reading about. And then he's like, look, I just planted. Apollos, this guy that you guys are bickering between who's right and who's wrong, who you follow and who you don't. This division, I just planted it. Like, it all belongs to God. In Fayetteville, we have some dividing lines in Fayetteville. We have dividing lines on where we are in Fayetteville. We have dividing lines on our denominations in Fayetteville. We have dividing lines on the skin color that we have in our church in Fayetteville. Our hobbies. We have dividing lines on our hobbies in Fayetteville and the surrounding area when it comes to church. Man, you pick a dividing line, and we can probably find it here in Fayetteville. We have dividing lines in this church. We have old church and new church. I think we have some age dividing lines. I think we have personality dividing lines. I mean, like, we can see division even here, and we're getting so much better. We're moving in such a positive direction. But let's be honest, if you don't think it exists, I mean, I think you're naive. I know some of you in here just wait for somebody else to make a certain comment and looking for the error or the issue so that you can have a problem with them. I know it exists. Most of you have talked to me about it or I've seen it. We sit and we look at what other churches are doing and we pick it apart. It's hard not to. Because most of the time when it happens, it shines a light inward and we don't like what we see. And Paul is bringing this division in the church, whether it be microscopic like Cape Fear Baptist Church or much larger like the Church of Fayetteville. He's talking about the division in this church is what's tearing, what the problem is. We're giving credit to the wrong things, to the wrong denominations, to the wrong pastors, to the wrong skin color, to the wrong everything. We're giving it to the wrong, we're giving credit to the wrong thing, and it doesn't belong to God. If it belonged to God in our minds, if this church belonged to God in our minds, it wouldn't look like it does. We wouldn't be so protective of what's ours and what we think, like what we stick to. He starts talking about the temple. And he brings look, he says, now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stone, wood, hay, and straw, here's two total different types of building materials. It's going to be tested by the fire. If I take fire to gold or silver or precious stone, right? If I take fire to it, depending on the temperature, let's talk about normal fire. If I take fire to it, they're going to withstand the heat. Now, if I take fire and I put fire to wood, hay, and straw, what's it going to do? It's going to burn up. It is no longer going to stand. And so when we talk about these two different types of materials, we're talking about the wisdom, right? We're talking about God's wisdom or the wisdom of men. When we build upon our foundation of Jesus Christ, we're either building upon it with God's wisdom, with the help of the Holy Spirit, or we're building upon it with man's wisdom. We will be tested. The temple that's being built, whether this temple relates to the individual temple of the Holy Spirit, us individually, or the temple as a whole of the church, it will be tested either way. And so do we build the church? Do we build the church on the wisdom of men, or do we build the church on the wisdom of God? Do we stick to the New Testament, or do we do our own thing and think that we can do it better? Now, I have very good examples of churches that are absolutely built upon the wisdom of men, and they look super successful. They really do. Thousands upon thousands of butts and seats every Sunday. Budgets and bank accounts that make some corporations look sad. Doing good things for the community. I'm going to show some prudence here and not give examples, but there are many examples of non-Christian organizations that do amazing things for the community. Very atheistic-driven groups that do incredible things for the kids. They get a whole bunch of credit for doing good stuff. And so when we look at this and we're measured, are we going to be measured against God's standards? When it's all said and done, are we going to be measured against God's standards, or are we going to be measured against man's standards? Is it built upon God, or is it built upon man? I mean, that's what he's really tearing apart here. So these divisions that are being created because we're making these choices to do it better our own way. And Paul has a huge issue with this because God does. We take credit for these things that we should not be taking credit for. We put so much on our shoulders. I mean, there's so many things going on here that are wrong that it's really hard to pull the individual strings. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. That's if he's building it upon man, but he has truly saved himself. I mean, he's going to make it. but everything he did, gone. That reward, the jewel in the crown, the well done, good and faithful servant. That reward is for the church that is built upon God's wisdom. That reward is the church that is united together, that is doing it God's way and not our individual way. That reward is for the person who's okay with being the tool and doesn't have to be the one that gets the credit. There's many ways that we keep tallies of things. I know churches keep tallies of those that they're baptized, and I know that many of us who have brought people to Christ have tallies of how many souls they've brought to Christ, and really it boils down to you are just the tool. Be happy with being the tool. I know it's counterintuitive and counter to everything that we know. Verse 18. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks he is wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is folly with God. For it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. So let no one boast in men, for all things are yours. Whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the world or life or death or the present or the future, all are yours, and you are Christ's, and Christ is God's. This morning we're in Sunday school, and we're talking about the role of God as the shepherd, and that we are then the sheep. And I start out with this illustration of God being the gardener or the builder. If you didn't get the illustration, that was the intention, and the mechanic, like he's the one that provides the service and builds. Okay, so, and God being the ultimate one who does, and us being the individual tools, and yet there's no one in this room who wants to be called a sheep or wants to be called a tool. Not one of us. Because in our age, in our culture, it is, I mean, like, you are the bottom of the barrel if you are a sheep. No one wants to be a sheep because you're just following, right? Like, we're called, like, if you watch the social medias, it's the sheeple. Keep following them, sheeple. Again, if I call you a tool, you're going to want to tighten me up. I think that's how how you phrased it. You're gonna want to throw some hands. Like you're not gonna be happy with the words that I use. Like it is not who we are to not get the credit. It is not who we are to follow and allow someone else to take care of our needs. Like this is counter to our culture. This to those that don't get it, this to those that are unsaved, this is folly. This is folly. This is nobody else who is not saved wants to be considered these things. Why would you want to? Why would you want to be a sheep? Well, because my needs are met. I'm protected. I have a guide. And with that, I have no fears, no anxieties. Why would I want to be a tool? I want to be a tool because then the burden is not on me. I'm just going to go in the direction I'm pointed. I'm going to dig the hole because that's what I'm supposed to do. But I don't have to have the plan for where the drainage system is supposed to go or where all the trees are supposed to be planted. I don't have to, if I'm the hammer, I don't, to be the tool, I don't have to, all I have to do is drive the nail. I don't have to have the blueprints to know where every wall, every stud is supposed to go. I don't have to know where every wire is run or every pipe is. I don't even have to know how to dig the foundation because the foundation already exists. Christ is the foundation. I don't have to know those things. So why would I want to be a tool? I want to be a tool because I want to do what God has directed me to do, and I don't want to have to worry about what happens in the end because that is all on God. I want to build the church the way that God has directed us to build the church. I want to do what my part of this is, so that I don't have to worry about, the overall church. Like, the church of Fayetteville is not on my shoulders. And it's not on yours. Whether the church of Fayetteville does the most amazing things in the world, like top church and all the way, that's not on my shoulders, that's on God's. God is the one that gets the credit for that. He's given us our part, our piece, and we're to be obedient and to follow Him. And God brings the increase. What does He lay on our shoulders? He lays on our shoulders not to be divided. He lays on our shoulders to spread the gospel. But He doesn't lay on our shoulders to make the church the best church. If we're talking about just Cape Fear, to make it like the biggest and the best. He lays it on our shoulders to be faithful to Him. And He takes care of it. Now we're supposed to do the best with what we have. But the reality is we're not supposed to worry about what we don't. That's so much easier. That is so much easier and so much less stress in your life if we're just faithful to the Word and what He's calling us to do and not have to continually struggle with the biggest plan. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than ours. He's the one that has the plan. We're just the tools that are supposed to do our part. Marion, you're just a tool. What's that? Justin, you're just a tool. Thomas, you're a total tool, man. And I love you for it. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, think about that. You're just there being faithful and doing God's work. Quit thinking you're the gardener. Quit worrying about being the contractor. You don't have to know how a car operates, all of the intricacies of the internal combustion engine. You don't have to understand that to be the wrench to fix it. It's not on your shoulders. You don't have to worry about those things. You don't have to be the mechanic to not cop an attitude with other Christians. And take offense at literally everything they say. You don't have to be the contractor to convert thousands. You just have to be faithful to worry about who God puts in your life. Maybe that God's a Billy Graham, or maybe that guy that God puts in your life's a Billy Graham. Maybe it's a Thomas McCuddy. People who have these impacts. Yeah, I put you in the same sentence as Billy Graham. Better recognize the tool that man is. I mean, Paul is really, I mean, there's some amazing lessons here, and the tone of his writing, he's really correcting the church of Corinth, and we also need correction, like we really do, like we